There is a force, invisible to the untrained eye, yet magnetic in its pull, commanding in its presence. That force is silence. The world has taught you to shout, to proclaim, to broadcast your every thought, as though volume is a symbol of strength. But true strength lies not in noise, but in quiet restraint. When a man learns to stay silent, he is no longer a prisoner of circumstance. He becomes the architect of it. He is no longer at the mercy of external noise. He commands the orchestra of his own mind. Silence is not the absence of communication. It is the most powerful form of it. In silence you do not seek approval. You do not request validation. You declare your self-control, your focus, your spiritual gravity without uttering a single word. The man who has mastered the art of staying silent is a man who understands that not all wars are fought with swords. Some are won through observation. Some are won by allowing others to exhaust themselves in empty speech, while you preserve your force like a loaded cannon behind a closed door. Why must you stay silent? Because in your silence lies the accumulation of mental energy. Every word you don't say, every argument you don't chase, every emotional reaction you withhold is a deposit in your vault of inner power. A man who is quick to speak gives away his secrets, his doubts, his ignorance, his weakness. But the man who holds his silence becomes a mystery, and with mystery comes influence. The world is not hungry for loud voices. It is thirsty for certainty, and certainty does not scream at whispers with confidence. You must understand that every time you choose silence over noise, you are choosing composure over chaos. The man who is not rattled by the opinions of others, who refuses to announce his every move, who does not explain himself at every corner, is not indifferent. He is intelligent. His silence is not passive. It is strategic. He knows that in the marketplace of life, those who speak too often devalue their words, but those who hold back, who speak with precision, whose silence is louder than the voices around them, those men are the ones who rise. There is a reservoir of strength building inside the man who chooses silence, not because he fears conflict, but because he knows the difference between energy and waste. He does not react to noise. He does not participate in gossip. He does not advertise his struggles, nor does he parade his victories. He simply acts. He simply builds. He simply sharpens his craft in the shadows while others celebrate their mediocrity in the spotlight. The powerful do not reveal all. They conceal, not out of deceit, but out of discipline, not because they are hiding, but because they are preparing. To stay silent is to prepare your foundation before showing your structure. It is to forge your weapons before walking into battle. It is to understand that power is lost when it's spoken too soon. A man with a vision must learn to keep it locked inside until it speaks for itself. To reveal your ambitions prematurely is to invite opinions that have no place in your process. The most successful people, those who build empires, change nations, dominate their industry, are not the ones shouting from rooftops. They are the ones silently working while the world sleeps. They are the ones whose presence is so focused, so composed, so self-contained that they do not need to speak for people to feel them. When you master silence, you gain something rare, depth. And depth is feared, respected, and impossible to counterfeit. Most men are too noisy to ever become powerful. Their need to be heard overrides their need to think. Their addiction to attention sabotages their ability to lead. They trade wisdom for applause, clarity for commentary, and direction for distraction. But the man who chooses to stay silent reclaims his mind. He turns inward and hears the voice that is often drowned in the clutter of society, his own. In a world that moves too fast, silence slows you down to the speed of truth. In silence, you are no longer at the mercy of manipulation. You are no longer driven by impulse. You move with thought. You think before you act. You respond instead of reacting. You choose instead of chasing. Silence teaches you to govern yourself, and in self-governance you earn the right to govern circumstances. The moment you master your emotions, your tongue, your reactions, the world bends to your will, not because you forced it, but because you became immovable. No empire is built on a shaky foundation, and nothing stabilizes the foundation of a man like silence. It is in silence that you hear your doubts and confront them. It is in silence that you hear your dreams and begin to organize them. It is in silence that you hear truth and are guided by it. But there is more. Silence is not only a tool of control, it is a weapon of precision. A man who talks all the time is like a man swinging wildly in every direction. He may look active, but he is ineffective. But the silent man, he waits, he calculates, he studies, and when he strikes with accuracy, because he's not wasting energy trying to be seen. He's studying the target. Now let us look deeper. Silence trains the mind for precision. Most people do not think, they react. Their speech is a product of emotion, not intention. Their voice is a symptom of chaos, not command. But when a man stays silent, his mind becomes a forge. He sharpens his thoughts like blades. He trims the fat from his ideas. He clarifies what matters and discards what doesn't. His silence becomes a workshop where great ideas are born and refined. To speak without thinking is to fire without aiming. It may be loud, but it is not lethal. It may be passionate, but it is not effective. The man who trains his mind in silence becomes surgical with his speech. He does not speak to impress. He speaks to influence. His words are not emotional reactions. They are strategic executions. In the art of achievement, nothing is more valuable than clarity. But clarity does not come in chaos. It comes in stillness. It comes in listening. It comes in pausing before reacting, thinking before speaking, observing before judging. Silence teaches you the most difficult discipline of all restraint, and in restraint there is respect, not just from others, but for yourself. The man who cannot stay silent is a man who has not yet mastered himself. His words betray him. His noise exposes his insecurity. His constant need to speak reveals his lack of inner peace. But when you stay silent, you teach yourself patience. You train your thoughts to mature before you release them into the world. You give your ideas the respect they deserve. And when you do speak, you command attention, not because you demanded it, but because you earned it. Let others chase noise. Let others seek the spotlight. You build in silence. You refine in silence. You grow in silence. You rise in silence. Then, when you are ready to speak, your voice will carry the weight of mountains. Because it was forged in the silence of discipline, there is a reason why some dreams never breathe. It's not because the dreamer lacks talent. It's not because the dream is too large. It's because the dreamer speaks too soon. He exposes the seed to the storm before it has rooted. He shares the vision before it has matured. Silence is not just power, it is protection. When you speak your goals before you've built the character to guard them, you hand them over to the opinions of the weak. And when your goal falls apart under that scrutiny, you wonder what went wrong. But the fault was in the exposure, not the ambition. A vision must be fed in private. It must be cultivated in silence. The roots of a mighty tree do not grow under applause. They grow in darkness, in stillness, in solitude. And so must your vision. Every time you speak too early, you place your dream on trial. You invite critics to dissect your motives, distract your focus, and drain your belief. But when you stay silent, when you nurture that goal in secret, you give it time to grow strong enough to defend itself. The world is full of people who have no vision of their own, yet they will gladly distort yours. They do not understand your calling, so they will try to shrink it. They have no discipline, so they will mock yours. They have no fire, so they will attempt to pour water on yours, not out of malice, but out of limitation. You must protect your dream from the reach of the limited, and that protection comes through silence. You do not owe anyone an explanation for your grind. You do not need to convince others of your direction. You do not need to seek permission for your mission. The path you walk is not up for negotiation. It is for execution, and execution requires undivided attention, sacred energy, and complete spiritual insulation. That insulation is silence. When you move in silence, you remove interference, you eliminate judgment. You carve a space where your only competition is your former self, and your only voice is your inner truth. There is danger in speaking goals aloud to those who do not share your standard. They will measure your vision with their ruler, never realizing that your map has a destination they cannot see. They will project their fears onto your future, and if you are not grounded, you will begin to believe them. But the silent man, he walks forward unaffected. He is unbothered by the static of shallow minds. He does not need a crowd to clap for him. His vision claps from within. You must understand that every word you speak is either investing energy or leaking it. Every declaration of your ambition is an energetic transaction. If you speak it prematurely, you dilute it. If you shout it to the wrong audience, you devalue it. But if you hold it close, if you seal it in the vault of your silence, it begins to glow. And one day, that glow becomes too bright to ignore. You won't need to tell people what you're doing. They will witness what you've done. You won't need to announce your transformation. They will feel your evolution. Your goals are sacred. Treat them as sacred. Speak only when the world cannot deny what you've become. Until then, let your results be your noise. Let your progress be your voice. Let your silence be your shield. Move in silence not because you are uncertain, but because you are focused. Not because you are afraid, but because you are building. Not because you seek to hide, but because you seek to prepare. Your silence is your sanctuary. Your vision's birthplace. Guard it with discipline, and it will guard you with destiny. Now look closely at the man who never says too much, who sits at the table of chaos yet does not flinch, who walks into a room and says little, but is remembered long after he leaves. That man has mastered an ancient truth. Silence commands respect, not through intimidation, not through arrogance, but through presence, presence that is unshaken, presence that does not need to announce itself. Presence that speaks before words ever leave the tongue. The loud man demands attention. The silent man commands it. The loud man explains himself to gain approval. The silent man approves of himself and moves. The loud man fights battles on every corner. The silent man chooses his war, studies the terrain, sharpens his sword in the dark, and then strikes with finality. Which one are you becoming? The moment you speak less, people begin to listen more. The less you share, the more they wonder. The more you hold back, the deeper their curiosity grows, and in that space you gain leverage, because attention is a currency, and those who spend it all become poor in power. But the silent man, he spends little and accumulates much. He lets others reveal their hand while he watches. He lets others show their insecurity while he builds certainty, and when he does speak, people lean in. Not because of the volume, but because of the value. You don't earn influence by trying to be seen. You earn influence by cultivating something rare, self-possession, and nothing demonstrates self-possession like silence. When you refuse to react, you show maturity. When you withhold unnecessary comments, you show restraint. When you speak only when necessary, you show wisdom. These are not traits of weakness. These are traits of power. The world teaches you to overshare, post everything, say everything, explain everything, but remember, mystery is magnetic. It is the unknown that draws people in. The silent man is not empty. He is full of controlled energy. The silent man is not disconnected. He is focused inward. The silent man is not lost. He is navigating his own compass, unaffected by external noise. When people cannot figure you out, they begin to respect your boundaries. When they cannot predict your next move, they begin to take your presence seriously. When you withhold your thoughts, your words gain currency. When you do speak, they understand. This man has measured his words, and they carry weight. He is not reacting, he is directing. He is not trying to impress, he is trying to impact. He is not desperate to be heard, he is selective with his influence. Too many men speak from impulse and wonder why they lose ground. Too many leak their plans to people who offer nothing but doubt in return. Too many reveal their hearts to crowds that do not deserve access. But the man who speaks little guards much. He does not open his gate for every traveler. He knows the price of peace, and he pays it with silence. Powerful people do not explain themselves. They demonstrate themselves. They do not announce their purpose. They express it through action. They do not seek validation. They validate themselves by executing their calling with ruthless precision. And you must learn to do the same. The longer you stay silent, the more your presence speaks. The quieter your tongue, the louder your discipline. The less you explain, the more people begin to notice, and in that noticing, they adjust. They tread carefully around a man who is not triggered. They pause before confronting a man who does not flinch. They rethink before underestimating a man who has said nothing, but has accomplished everything. The tongue, when undisciplined, is a weapon turned inward. It cuts the very hand that holds it. A man who cannot master his mouth will never master his life. The undisciplined tongue will expose him, weaken him, and sabotage him before the enemy even arrives. But the man who stays silent builds armor from within. He does not hand over his emotions like currency. He does not allow his reactions to be dictated by noise. He stays calm in fire, and because he does, he becomes fireproof. To speak is to expose, but to stay silent is to protect. There are men who lose entire opportunities, destroy relationships, and dismantle their own growth simply because they could not keep quiet when it mattered. They were baited into conflict, lured into gossip, and seduced by the comfort of expressing every passing emotion. And in doing so, they revealed what should have remained sacred. They exposed the unfinished blueprint of their future to those incapable of understanding the architecture of greatness. There are moments when silence is not just wise, it is necessary for survival. The greatest victories often begin in the shadows. The most powerful comebacks are launched from silence. While others argue, you observe. While others defend, you improve. While others talk, you think. While others post, you plan. The world is addicted to reaction, but the rarest among men respond only with precision, only with strategy, only with purpose. That kind of man cannot be manipulated. He cannot be provoked. He cannot be moved by emotion because he has trained his spirit in the discipline of stillness. Do not speak when you are angry. Do not reveal your plans in your moments of excitement. Do not announce your boundaries out of wounded pride. Your greatest strength is found when you are capable of holding your peace, even while the world tries to steal it. That is the trait of a leader, not the one who roars loudest, but the one who governs his reactions like a king rules his kingdom, with wisdom, restraint, and purpose. There will be moments when people will misunderstand you, misrepresent you, and misjudge you. Let them. Their misunderstanding is not your concern. Their assumptions are not your responsibility. You were not sent to explain yourself to everyone. You were sent to build what only few can comprehend. The moment you begin to defend every accusation, you dilute your mission. Let your results defend you. Let your progress correct them. Let your silence become the echo that follows your greatness. Weak men react. Strong men remain still. They observe, they process, they learn. And then they move with an authority so firm, it cannot be challenged. That authority comes not from loudness, but from silence. You cannot develop internal clarity if your life is dominated by external noise. You must become comfortable being silent, even when the pressure to speak is loud, especially then. That is when you prove your strength. That is when you begin to separate yourself from the masses. In silence, you dismantle ego. In silence, you build character. In silence, you hear the thoughts of your higher self that are usually drowned in the volume of emotional chaos. In silence, your voice becomes refined, your ideas become sharp, your mind becomes clean, you begin to see the game clearly, you begin to understand people deeper, you begin to identify the moves that will give you leverage. You begin to win, not because you're louder, but because you're clearer. You don't always need to speak to win. Sometimes your silence is the win. Sometimes not engaging is the victory. Sometimes walking away in silence carries more dignity than shouting your truth. Because truth is not always declared, it is lived, and when your life begins to show it, even your enemies will recognize it, not because you convinced them, but because your silence spoke it louder than any argument could have. Your silence is your training ground. It is the furnace where patience, clarity, resilience, and dominance are forged. While others waste years defending their emotions, you are building a foundation that cannot be shaken. While others are proving points, you are becoming the point. The very thing they tried to argue against is the man you are becoming in silence, and that man, once formed, no longer needs to shout. He walks with the authority of discipline and the presence of purpose. Now consider this. Silence is not just an individual weapon. It is your direct line to infinite intelligence. When you disconnect from noise, when you retreat into solitude, when you resist the urge to speak every thought, you create a signal clear enough to hear the source of all wisdom. That wisdom does not shout. It whispers, and only the quietest minds can hear it. If you live in noise, you will miss it. If you speak constantly, you will drown it. But when you stay silent, when you still your inner chaos, the answers begin to come. The greatest breakthroughs in history were born in silence, in the stillness of study, in the quiet of reflection, in the solitude of thought. No great inventor, philosopher, warrior, or leader ever rose to power through chatter. They went deep, they went inward. They explored the chambers of the mind that most men never access because they're too busy talking. But you, if you choose silence, will enter that space. You will tap into a stream of insight, intuition, and power that the average man will never touch. Do not confuse silence with absence. Do not mistake stillness for inaction. The man who is silent is often the one doing the deepest work. The man who withdraws from noise is often the one aligning himself with purpose. The man who resists the urge to speak is often the one building the foundation that others will one day stand on. You are not falling behind when you go silent. You are advancing inward, and that inward advancement eventually translates into outward dominance. Every empire begins in silence. Every revolution is born in the thoughts that no one hears. Every transformation starts with a man who dares to go quiet long enough to understand what must be done. Most men will never reach this level. They will remain prisoners of the noise, forever trying to shout their way to respect, argue their way to significance, and explain their way into power. But those roads never lead to the throne. The throne is reached by the man who walks in silence while others scream, who listens while others talk, who strategizes while others react. If you want to hear the voice that leads to mastery, you must first silence the voices that feed mediocrity. The world is full of opinions, most of which are empty. If you open your mind to all of them, you will lose the sound of your own conviction. And when your conviction dies, so does your destiny. Silence is not about cutting others off. It is about reconnecting to yourself. It is not isolation. It is elevation. It is the separation required to become irreplaceable. In silence, the laws of life begin to reveal themselves. You start to see how cause creates effect. You begin to notice the patterns in people. You discover the blueprint of behavior. You understand timing. You begin to master emotional rhythm. You learn when to wait and when to strike. You recognize the difference between movement and progress. And most importantly, you develop the discipline to act with purpose instead of reacting from pressure. Most men will go their entire lives without mastering this one skill, silence. They will destroy their relationships, interrupt their blessings, sabotage their success, and ruin their peace because they did not understand when to hold their tongue. But you do not need to live like them. You can begin now. Train yourself to stay silent when the world demands you speak. Train yourself to remain calm when others provoke. Train yourself to observe 10 times before you respond once certainly. Here's a 100-word conclusion for the speech. This is why you must stay silent. True power is born in silence. When you hold your tongue, you conserve energy, protect your vision, and sharpen your mind. Silence commands respect and shields you from distraction, doubt, and self-sabotage. It connects you to deeper wisdom and allows your actions to speak louder than words ever could. The discipline to stay silent is the foundation of clarity, strength, and influence. Master this art, and you will rise above noise and chaos, becoming a force that moves with purpose and precision, unstoppable in your pursuit of greatness. Silence is not weakness. It is your greatest weapon.